Okay, good morning. I am in Vake Park about 9:15 in the morning on a nice overcast day. You need overcast to visit a cemetery, which is where we're going, the Vake Cemetery. But as we go, we will stop at a few places along the way and just see where we are, and then we'll go to the cemetery. And I'll give you the rules of going to a cemetery in Tbilisi, Georgia. So the first place we're going to stop on our way through the park, and I always kind of stop here and wonder, is this abandoned fountain? This was finished 2 years ago, and then there was a tragic event involving a child, and it has not been finished since then. And I won't say any more about it because it is sensitive. But meanwhile, we wait for them. They have to redesign it, is the problem. But let's go through. Speaking of children, there is an amusement park exclusively for children here. And this is a part of the park I really like. I like it because, for many reasons. If you walk through early in the morning on your way to do exercise, or if you walk through late at night, it's abandoned. And there's something about an abandoned amusement park. How often do you get to walk through one? But in the middle of the day, it's often full of children. And they have, the miniature versions of the carousel and a roller coaster and a Ferris wheel and these sorts of things. And it's just, I find it a cool place to be. I'm not wanting to be with the children doing this. I don't have any children of my own, much to my own regret. But nevertheless, it is a pretty interesting place for the kids. There are little aesthetic things I could criticize, but I like the whole vibe. I like the way the little miniature Ferris wheel is going around. Now these little rides, coin-operated rides, are really fascinating at night. And there used to be a boxing set here, which had kind of the Rocky theme song, which would get interrupted and then go on, and it went all through the night. It was kind of eerie. The rotating swings there, very safe. If you want, before you get to the really big ones. And there's a nice cafe. And there's people doing what they really love to do here, is come do exercises, play a little tennis or basketball, ping pong. There's a little bit of weightlifting equipment and exercise equipment. Nice. Now I'm looking back towards the fountain, but that's not where we're going. We are going to go further west towards the Vake Cemetery, which is our ultimate destination. Now, I didn't realize I could do this at first because you have this fence that's there. And the fence is clearly locked and didn't look like there was any way through, except, of course, I thought about it. And I saw other people there, and I said, oh, well, it's Georgia. There's always a way through. And it's one of the funny things about Georgia is it's not super security conscious, the way it would be certainly in America. In America, you find people obsessed with locking security devices. Here, they're more of a suggestion, and I find that refreshing. It's kind of like, to me, going back to the 1970s or something. So we're following the trail, and I'm keeping my eyes open for the dogs. Looks like, friendly dog with its owner. But I'm going around the corner because I know where the quote-unquote secret entrance is. Is that a dog, or is that like a mouse to eat? So you come back here. Off in the distance, you see a woman with a baby stroller. A pram, as I believe people say it in the UK. I don't know the Georgian word. And there it is. And it makes me wonder why there's a fence at all. Now, what this, I guess they don't want people driving through here, but where this little trail goes to is the football stadium. Football as in the world definition of football, as opposed to the American definition of football. But I discovered this a couple years ago, and it's a great walk. Now, there's other trails up in the woods here, and they're all very safe and wonderful. And in fact, these woods that are on the side are actually the side of the mountain, and if you take one of those trails, you can get up to Turtle Lake. You can then climb from there and keep going, I suppose, until you get to Armenia. Oh, there's another bite-sized dog. That definitely is a toy. What is that? Toy what? Does anyone know what that is? Let me know. Looks like a toy Doberman Pinscher, but we're not going to say that. So anyway, then you get on this, it doesn't look like a trail, but it is. And you go out through the back of these buildings, and you'll come out on Chavchavadze Street. And when you do, on Chavchavadze, now you could walk all the way up. You could take a bus all the way up to the cemetery on Chavchavadze. You could take a walk, if you want a nice long walk, or you can get out earlier and walk up partway. Come visit me, and I can take you up there. But I prefer going through the park and going this back way to doing that. This is about the third time I've been to the Vake Cemetery. And it's an unusual cemetery. I will explain more of it as we get there. But we're coming up on Chavchavadze here. And I'm taking you with me. And I'm looking at this. I'm going like, gosh, this is kind of choppy walking and such. And I'm using my phone, not my camera here. But I just broke down and bought a cheap gimbal, which looks like it'll work pretty well for about $100. And that should even my steps out. Meanwhile, I think what we're going to see here is interesting enough that you will survive without it. I did do one thing in the middle of the the cemetery. It just got so choppy that I added the echo trails effects in video just to make it feel like you're getting lost, because indeed that is what I was doing, and you'll see why. So there's a bus stop. You can get out, and the cemetery is right across the street where those cedar trees are, and those are the tall evergreens. So I'm waiting here waiting for the light to change. Cars going by, pretty big road, and it goes up to Tsikneti, which sometime I have to do a trip up there. Do you want to see what Tsikneti is? It's what's called a daba, and a daba is a small little city that basically is a satellite of the larger city, but it doesn't have a lot of things in itself. In America, we would make these things more independent, but here they're more like satellites of Tbilisi. And I have a whole series where I went to Kojori, which is another daba, and I got there by bus. Cost me all of one lari to get there one way, and then I walked all the way back, and there's 3 videos related to that. Is it 3 or 4? Anyway, it's a bit. But here we are. We're at the Vake Cemetery. Now, evidently, there's another entrance, and I've always just entered this way, but I looked on the map and I said, wait a minute. Look at the way I'm walking through here. There's only one kind of roadway, pathway that enters, and then as you walk in, do you see any place to walk? This is the whole thing. And I went to another cemetery. I've been to a couple of them. And they're all like this. I've never seen anything like this before, where there's no clear path to get through. And we're going to get lost in here in a bit. But I just wanted to give you, we're looking in color right now. We will be out of the color zone pretty quickly here. And we're going to shift into black and white. But there's a lot of statues here. Now, statues are not normal for Georgia. And I guess they got permission to start doing them from the church, but the church didn't want to go the Catholic route. You'll notice the crosses here have kind of a bent shape. And those are the Georgian cross, which is essentially from St. Nino, to make a cross, she took a bent, dried grape branch and made a cross out of it, and that's what that represents. But anyway, as I'm going through here, you will notice statues, but they're all more recent. They don't go back 300-400 years or anything like that. Kind of a haunted presence right there. And you'll notice here, I've got times when it seems like multiple lines are coming in, and I did that on purpose because I need that gimbal. But there was another one of the crosses. But you'll see things like this. A man, the bust of a man. I call this the big men. They kind of look big, but they're big also in presence. But here is a Virgin Mary, and if you get close to the statue, you'll see it's got a more Georgian face than, say, the Italian or Western European faces. But they were allowed, I'm not exactly sure of the date, sometime in the 20th century, to start doing statues, because they used to do murals and bas-relief, but they were not allowed to do statues. And when they started doing statues, then they allowed. Now, I'm sure there's certain rules according to Orthodox tradition. They do have interesting statues here, and so I do recommend it for that reason. And I've always been someone who loves statues and loves to visit cemeteries. Ever since I was young, there was a cemetery in San Rafael, California that I used to play in, which is what makes what I'm about to say very interesting. And so if you're thinking of going and visiting the cemetery, listen to what I'm about to tell you. Well, here we are in the Vake Cemetery, a very quiet place, very difficult to get around. There are almost no paths. If you want to go from one area to another, you walk through this kind of tortuous path. Here's a rule about coming to Georgian cemeteries, which I do recommend. But first of all, you have to understand the Georgians don't look at their cemeteries, certainly not the way Americans do, nor do they look at them even the way Catholics do. I have a good friend, and I told her I wanted to go up to Vake Cemetery. And she looked at me in horror as if, why would you do that? And the point is, there isn't a goth culture here. There isn't a culture of people who want to linger among the dead. Now, what I'm about to say in a few minutes is going to completely contradict that, but bear with me. The reason is that in the Orthodox tradition, you don't have this kind of obsession with the dark and the gloomy, which is fascinating since their churches are sometimes quite dark and gloomy by Western standards. But here in Vake Cemetery, which I'll show you more of in a moment, of course, the first rule I would give you is be extremely respectful. And by extremely respectful, I mean walk quietly. Do not come here if you're in the mood to have fun. Don't make ironic, jokey comments. I'm walking around and I see men who are working here. It's not going to go well with you if you start making jokey comments. If there's someone here visiting, they're probably visiting a deceased relation. And they're not going to look at it in a pleasant way if you're laughing and joking. So don't come here in a fun mood. This is not a place for fun. This is a place for extreme respect. To go along with that, I'm being very careful about taking photos here. I am.
And I'm not hiding my camera, but I'm also not going, ooh, ooh, and taking photo after photo after photo. I'm not consuming the imagery here. I am respecting it. And that might be very difficult for, I know, people in my country, America, and I know others in other countries who would come to a place like this and start making jokes. Like you'll see behind me a man and a woman in a kind of a stele. Now, I wouldn't make any comments on that while you're here. After, take a photo of it, comment later. The same is true. There are some odd sorts of things. I took a photo of a man and a woman, probably the grandparents, and a younger child still strapped to a wheelchair of sorts, who is it's a laminated photo in color. I don't even know how they did it, on a marble slab. Now, that to me as an American looks odd. But don't come here with your friends and start talking about how odd it looks. Like I say, take a photo, talk later. So those are the first sets of rules. The rule number one is be super respectful. This is not a Catholic cemetery. It's not a Protestant cemetery. It is an Orthodox cemetery. And people here treat the dead differently than you do.
Okay, so you've got the rules now, and those are very important. Respect, number one. But now, I've walked down, and this is extremely hilly, and you'll hear me huffing and puffing, and you'll see why, because I'm literally climbing up the sides of rock embankments trying to find a way out. But now we're going to see something unusual. Now look at the chair, then you look down, and what you'll see is there's a table there with a couple of benches nearby. This is not a bug, it's a feature. I've never said that before. It's something people say, but it's kind of a nice thing to say. So I'm going to go over to this other place where I saw a table, and I'm going to explain to you while I'm there what these tables are all about.
So I'm sitting at a table in a cemetery. And this is where I said I would tell you how the rules kind of change. People actually use these tables. There are at least a couple of days a year, maybe a person's birthday, where people will come to a place like this and sit and eat food, and essentially breaking bread with the dead. And now this, in the West, would be a forbidden concept. Going and eating food at a cemetery is not something we do. But here, and you'll find this is an Orthodox tradition, there are at least a couple of days where the family, or at least the relatives, or even friends, will meet up in a cemetery and have food. Now, I don't know, I'm not Georgian, I'm not Orthodox, so I don't know all of the peculiarities of this tradition. But if you come here and you see people eating together, maybe they're doing it to honor someone's birthday or another memorial date, don't interrupt them. Don't come up and talk. Just let them be. I mean, unless they invite you. You never know with Georgians. But the point is this. Again, the respect principle. Let them do what they're doing. Don't comment on it. Don't walk up and be that kind of funny American who says, oh, you're eating at the cemetery. We would never do that. No, don't be that person to try to make some sort of point about your culture. Observe theirs, if you do. And I came here the first time back in, what was it, I think it was it was January of 2018 when I was first visiting. And I saw people sitting and eating, one or two. It was obviously not a special date for it, but it was also a Sunday. So one thing I've learned is if I want to come here and film, don't come on a Sunday. Let people go about honoring the dead in the way they wish. A day like today, there's no one here but me and the cemetery workers.
Okay, now we come to the adventure part of the journey. There's lots more of the cemetery. Like I say, I discovered there's a huge other section I haven't even been to yet. And part of the reason I don't go is look how hard it is to get through here. Now, try to imagine you're me trying to figure out how to get to the next place. You look, you think you see a place, and you don't. So here, for instance, I look down, I go like, nah, that's not going to work. So I climb up on this wall and then walk along it. If you listen carefully, you'll hear me bump against a loose tile. And there's a table and a bench. And now this set of stairs is extremely steep. My video of it does not do it justice. And this is really thin and narrow in here. It's covered in leaves and brush, overgrowth. And so I'm just cutting my way through. Not cutting, but you get what I'm saying. And there's no trail through. Which raises a big question for me. If someone wants to get buried here, how do they bring the body through this? Like right there's a lot of dirt in the ground. Maybe they could put another person in there, but how on earth do you bring the coffin here? And now it's getting hallucinogenic because it is. It's just, you start to feel completely, I don't know, at a loss. So we continue on. I'm looking for a way. And you'll hear me, breathing heavily. You'll hear me, crackling on branches. You hear all sorts of stuff. And it just goes on and on and on. And I'm looking for a way. I thought I saw a real pathway up ahead, which is why I've gone down into this valley. We're almost to someplace.
A superhighway.
Okay, which way to go?
Now how to get out. Okay, I think I see a way. Nope. Nope. Well, it looks like that way. It's the only way. Is that a step there, actually? Go this way. I'll turn this off for a moment. Which way to go? Okay, that maybe there's a rough trail there, but maybe this is more of a legitimate trail here. Pathway. Gotta be careful stepping on these tiles. You never know when one's gonna be loose. Okay, this one here, and the funny thing is, there was no trail leading to this. I've never been in a cemetery like the Georgian ones before. There's just no way to get through. Utterly fascinating, though. And it does raise the question, how do you fill up these lots? Ah, finally, I see a real trail up there. How do you get the bodies here, in other words? Now, because the one thing I'm sure of is when I get further up this trail, it is not going to be a road for bringing the limousine down. This is the trail on the way out. But again, how do you carry the bodies here? You're certainly not going to drive up with a limousine, take it out, and it'll be right next to the grave. And some of these places are impossible to get to. But maybe they decide that by how long it's been here. Okay, I see a couple of people down there. I'm going to turn this off. Be respectful.
Okay, so we made it out. Just barely. There were times I was sitting there climbing up the sides, holding onto branches, just trying to figure out where I am. And I finally this is like the roadway. But it's time to go. Let's go get a bus and go home. And thanks for coming with me to Vake Cemetery. You should go to a Georgian cemetery, but follow my rules. Is there a bus? There's a bus. The 351. We'll get on that. That'll take me home. Bye.